vainqueur d'étape sur les routes du Tour de France à Carcassonne. Il fait également 3e et 5e. Non, l'un des favoris, il a déjà terminé 2e de Paris-Roubaix, 4e et 5e. Il a connu le podium au Tour des Flandres. On peut applaudir le coureur américain Georgine Capi, champion des États-Unis, vainqueur d'étape sur les routes du Tour de France et quelque part un petit peu français, Georgine Capi. Donc, il entrait parmi les 5 premiers le Britannique David Millar, qui aurait été l'un des acteurs majeurs du Tour des Flandres. Toute l'équipe Sky que nous retrouvons avec Geraint Thomas, le champion du monde et champion olympique de poursuite. Juan Antonio Flecha, déjà 2e, 3e, 4e et 5e sur les routes de Paris-Roubaix. Le rejoint maintenant l'un des benjamins de ce Paris-Roubaix. Le voilà avec le maillot de contre-la-montre. On continue maintenant. La tension est palpable avec l'équipe Saxo Bank et on va retrouver au départ celui qui est le champion du monde de contre-la-montre individuelle. Quelle ferveur lors de sa victoire à Mendrisio. On applaudit Fabian de Cancellara, vainqueur du Tour des Flandres. Et quel vainqueur! Il a déjà gagné Milan-San Remo et il a gagné donc Paris-Roubaix. Il espère à nouveau renouer avec la victoire dans cette classique. Voilà pour l'équipe Saxo-Bank. Matti Brechel qui a terminé 3e des championnats du monde et qui était très actif la semaine dernière. Glenn Dolander, longue carrière réalisée par ce coureur. Derrière lui nous avons Adam Blight et ici le champion de Belgique Tom Bonnen, de Paris-Roubaix. Tom Bonnen, donc en quête d'une nouvelle victoire après sa 2e place obtenue sur les routes de Milan-San Remo, la 2e place également dans le Tour des Flandres, le champion de Belgique de mer de Monsieur Délier, donc délégué au sport, 4-3.
Allez, kom maar, hè. Nederlandse zoomwereld. Wat er nog lost. Daar. Oh, zo'n 4 nacht. Oeh, dat. Oké. Hey, klaar. Hier. Dit voor Paulini. Dingen. Hier, de armen staan hier. Oh ja. Ja, dat niet. Kom maar. Allez. Casper.
Well, this is the peloton virtually. There's been a crash here, I think. Or are they just queuing up to... No, there's the fall on the right-hand side. It's almost to be expected in this race.
Well, this can happen anyway on the running towards the finish. A rider gone down there very hard, and in fact, it looks to me as if that might be Stijn de Volde. It is Stijn de Volde. And there you can get a chance to see the special bike that he's got. It's got little gels in the forks of the front and rear, and de Volde looks extremely injured there, Phil. They're trying to get himself up.
New Zealand. Those are basically the English-speaking content of this 19-man front group, as we now go on to sector 23. We count down to the final sector before the finish in Roubaix itself. Weather, by the way, a little bit chilly, but it is a bit more spring-like. As you can see, you have fluffy clouds around, and the gap is now up to 4:22 as the 19 riders get onto this sector.
Well, of these 27 sections of cobblestones the riders will go over today, they are ranked by a star system. This is ranked as a 3-star, which is a medium difficulty section of cobblestones. The most difficult ones are 5-star, and that, of course, is the one which will come up in around about 30 kilometers time, the Forest of Arenberg, which I think brings a little bit of fear and trepidation into the heart of every bike rider's mind when you even mention the name.
Yes, and interesting to note that this year, because there was rather The police had an unruly crowd in the Forest last year, probably primed a little bit by the alcohol, so they banned all alcohol this year, and they've also, we've had pictures from the Arenberg Forest, they seem to be allowing their spectators to stand on only one side of the very narrow road there. Riders still to approach that as we now continue on our way here. 4:20 is the gap, so it is starting to come down. It's a good lead. They've given these 19 riders a good chance here. Strong men might go forward once the road gets onto those rough cobblestones.
Well, they'll start to eat into the advantage of that 19-man leading group as they get closer and closer to the Forest of Arenberg, because these riders in the main field will accelerate every time they approach the cobblestone section. It's so important to ride Paris-Roubaix in the first positions of the main field, because if you sit too far back in 30th, 40th position, that's when you get subjected to the accidents and injuries, and maybe even get delayed by riders who've got a mechanical incident.
The black line on the yellow flag there, that's the flag of Flanders. And this is the French side of Flanders where we are now as the riders here. Not too far as they get closer towards the commentary position where they'll come very close to Belgium itself, but it stays all in France, the race today. And again, attack starting to come. Looks like we've got BMC trying to make a move now.
Well, BMC will be trying to look after the interests of George Hincapie, who, amazingly enough, Phil, is starting his 17th Paris-Roubaix today. It seems amazing. Yeah. He was, for many years, when he's with the Motorola squad, his first professional cycling team, the youngest rider in the peloton for about 3 years in a row with Kevin Livingston.
And the other man you mentioned, Paul, with the remarkable palmarès in this event is Servais Knaven.
Servais Knaven, yes, he's now trying.
He won this race 4 times, Roger de Vlaminck. He never ever had a mechanical problem. An unbelievable record.
Until the last Paris-Roubaix that he ever rode, and that was the first time that he ever had a flat tyre. But he did, however, let's not forget, go on to win Paris-Roubaix on 4 occasions. A record that Tom Bonan today is hoping that he may well be able to equal.
Well, just looking at the leaders here now. New colours for Greg Henderson, right in the centre in the black jersey and the blue gloves. The Kiwi changing teams from HTC Columbia to the British Team Sky this year, and as you can see, he's in the breakaway here at the moment. There is the full list of riders in the breakaway. Mitchell Docker, I forgot to mention poor Mitch Docker, is also in here. He rides for Skill Shimano. He's read the move well. He's got a teammate in Ray Curvers also up in the leading group. So there's a few teams got 2 riders represented here. The other team is Rabobank, the Dutch setup. Rick Flaintz and Tom Lisa are up there as well. The gap, though, is coming down now. The peloton itself on the right-hand side of the road. Just joining, perhaps after a puncture, but he's coming up strongly now. There's the long ride. The riders in the middle are not just looking for holes in the road right now. They're also trying to keep the dust out their eyes. And as this peloton is still very, very big here. 19 riders in front are getting away soon after the start and gradually building up to a leading group of 19. With a number of Australians in there and 1 New Zealand rider in Greg Henderson and 1 British rider in Jeremy Hunt. There's the full list of names for you there.
That's Jeremy Hunt there in second, third position now in the black jersey of Cervelo test team. A big helper for Thor Hushovd a little bit later on. It's big question mark over Thor Hushovd. I think we all expected him to ride very well last week in the Ronde van Vlaanderen and the Tour of Flanders, but he really didn't seem to have that form. I think he's had a very difficult start to the season. In fact, he puts down his bad form to the start of the season to the fact that his daughter just started kindergarten. She's brought a whole host of little strange viruses, and obviously he's been picking them up and fighting to stay healthy. You may well have wondered why was he doing that. Well, every one of the team managers, Phil, have a camera, have a television in the car so they can watch what's going on, and it's a good way of getting signals back to the team manager. Clever man.
There's the split I was telling you about. See a change of direction. The wind rips into the centre of the peloton. Now everybody tries to dash across. Those gaps open very, very quickly. There is a strong wind today. Hardly any trees to it.
So went up the outside there. He realises he wants to get up to the front end of the main field before they get into the next section of cobblestones. Formerly a European time trial champion, he was also a pretty handy bike rider on the track, but he's really matured over.
Come any harder than Bernard, that's for sure. That man's obviously been eating too much of his own cooking down there. It's made him grow. These are the giants of Flanders. You'll see them all over the place. There's been a crash here on this left-hand bend as well. That's a Sky rider wrestling with his bike just now, and it's Michael Barry who's got himself in trouble there, and he just can't separate the bikes at the moment.
Well, that's a very strange situation there. The two bikes were completely interlocked, and that creates a bit of confusion at the back end of the main field. And the rider from Quickstep also involved in that little fracas.
Well, crashes are to be expected and are pretty much commonplace. There's the Sky team car gone by and left him to his own device. It's there. Not sure.
This is Stavoldar again. He really is not having a great day today. He banked his whole season, Phil, on riding well in the Tour of Flanders last week. Well, he didn't do that. The responsibility leaned on the shoulders of his teammate Tom Bonen. But here he's been on the ground, he's been off the back, and I think today he may well have to turn around and help the rest of the team try and succeed in this race.
Two bottles.
Only called the Hell of the North, but it's nothing to do with the cobblestones. In fact, it was the race organisation when they came up here after the First World War and they looked at all the devastation from the First World War and the trenches that were left in the area around the Somme, and they wrote 27 sections of cobblestones. This is the section of cobbles that takes the riders from Verchin to Kiernan.
Well, I know that many people will be watching this in Australia. It's getting late into the evening there, but here it is a lovely sunny day but rather chilly. It is spring-like at last, some would say, in Europe, and the riders here have got a dry day forecast for the whole of the crossing of the Hell of the North. This three-star sector, the riders will continue to try and seek the centre of the road. If you get caught like that rider on the right in the corners, things happen in there. The little holes pop up and down you go and off the side and sometimes into a ditch.
Well, the scary thing about riding at the side of that road, it is on occasion just a little bit smoother than the cobblestones, but because of the rain that's been in this part of Europe for the last couple of months, a lot of the little thick glassy stones get poured into that side there, and that's where you're much more likely to get yourself a flat tyre from a stone going into the tyre.
This is the leading group, 19 riders. As far as we know, there are still 19 riders in this leading group. It includes Matthew Goss, Adam Hansen, the two Australians, along with Chris Sutton is here as well for Sky. Greg Henderson of New Zealand has made the split. So too is Mitch Docker of Skill Shimano. They're basically, along with Jeremy Hunt, the English speakers in bar. You always have to combat bad luck on this race. Things just happen, and you've got to recover and get back up with the leaders. You're never actually safe until you cross the finishing line, which is on the velodrome in Roubaix.
Well, Phil, I was talking to Matty Breschel yesterday, and remember last week in the Tour of Flanders he had a lot of bad luck and he was very upset about the technical difficulties he and the mechanical team supporting him had. But he seemed to have been talked to during the week by everybody about Paris-Roubaix, and it was talked into the mind frame that yes, you have to have bad luck in a race like this, but you've got to battle back for it. You haven't got to give up. You haven't got to let it affect your mentality. Just fight back all of the time if you think you can win a great classic like this one.
Well, Stuart O'Grady, who won the race a few years ago, he came back from a flat tyre to join the leaders and go on to win by himself. And not even the organisation saw him return to the breakaway. We only saw him when he attacked out of it. We never saw him come back either. But he certainly won that race well. And he's the only one really to have broken up the domination of Cancellara, who's won it once, and the two victories of Tom Bonen in the past 2 years. And Tom has won it 3 times since 2005.
Well, talking about Saxo back there, Phil, look at
right
that
there
for a bit of organisation. They've got 5 riders there sitting at the front end of the main field, just ahead of Fabian Cancellara. Cancellara really is the #1 favourite for this bike race. Wouldn't talk to anybody yesterday compared to a very relaxed Tom Bonen, who took his time to talk to the French press, the English-speaking press, and of course the Flemish press as well.
It's a sign of a very strong team to put all those riders right up at the front at this stage of Paris-Roubaix on these narrow roads. But to do that, they've got to ride at a hard tempo to stop anybody else displacing them. That's a sign of a great team. And they're backed up, of course. They know they have a great man, well capable of victory today in Cancellara, if they can put him in the right place. That's Matti Breschel off to the right as well. Also a champion of his own country, Denmark, on the same team. Very unhappy last week when Cancellara had a bike change. It took precisely 8 seconds. When poor old Breschel came, same mechanic, took about half a day. Well, it wasn't very complimentary after the race.
It's what I always say, Phil. It's very often, if the rider is not calm and relaxed, that anxiety gets passed on to the mechanic, and that forces the mechanic on occasions to make errors. Cancellara, on the other hand, was very calm and collected when he went back to the team car. He explained what the problem was and said, okay, in about a kilometre's time, I'm going to pull over to the right-hand side. I want my spare bike. You can fix this one. That instilled confidence into the mechanic as well, who was nice and relaxed, and it resulted in a very rapid change.
Well, I can hear that Valence is having a change of bike at the moment, but I don't think we're going to get any pictures of it. This will happen all the time. It's almost routine for the mechanics at the back of the race.
The problem with Paris-Roubaix is there is so much stuff going on all of the time, and we only really have 3 cameras out on the road and 1 in the sky, so you can't see everything. But one thing is for certain about Paris-Roubaix, for once they get into
A hell of a lot worse than this. This is the hell of the north. Sean Kelly sitting beside me. Sean, today this is a battle of attrition.
Yes, it certainly is, and it's the great big classic of the season. I suppose it's the main one, and you know, what a race we should have in the end. Interesting, at the moment we have a very big group of riders and a lot of teams represented up there, you know, but the ones we haven't up in the breakaway, we've seen them doing some work here as we see some problems here once again for some of the riders, but the dry conditions are going to help it a lot, as we've seen in the past with the wet conditions. They can be so much dangerous, but still it's a very, you know, dangerous race. You have to ride in the front, and I think today the final is going to be difficult. As you mentioned there some moments ago, we're down on schedule because there is a headwind, and there's a very strong wind out there, and in the end it's going to be very difficult, because when you turn around here on the section of cobbles in the final 50-60 kilometers, you're guaranteed to get side winds a lot of the times, and that's going to cause major problems when the riders are going to be tired. And we've seen a little bit of earlier on there was a little bit of an upsurge in the speed speed in the bunch, and a lot of riders struggling on the rear because at that moment they were a sidewind. But now, once again,
Daar zijn papa. Go on. Wat is getal?
What sort of different character, Sean, does this race have when it's a dry race as opposed to a wet race? I mean, you've done both. You've won in atrocious conditions and you've raced in these sort of conditions as well. What sort of different? How do you approach it differently?
Well, I think it gives you, as a favourite, it gives you a bit more comfort because going into this race as a big favourite, you can be, you know, really the best. As Cancellara and Bourne, I suppose they're, you know, a long ways ahead of everybody else. But if you have bad conditions, well then, you know, there's so much can happen in this race. Crashes, you get taken out by riders who fall in front of you in the wet conditions, where today, although it is a still very dangerous race, you can relax a bit more, and you know, you will see, as we see our shots here, Bourne and Cancellara, they're out of the front of the peloton, and you can afford to do that a little bit more, be in 25th position. If you have wet conditions, it's very risky doing that. You have to ride much more to the front and try and stay in the top 10 or 15 on all the section of cobbles. So for the big favourites, you can relax that a little bit more, and I think, you know, everybody will be happy with the situation. But you know, there is riders maybe who are not as strong as the big favourites, who maybe perform well in the wet conditions. They would rather that it would be wet and raining today, because a strong rider like Cancellara, he can do so much damage in the end on the dry sections. When he really turn up the gas, it's so much more difficult to follow him, and he can take the corners on the cobblestones much faster, where in the wet conditions he has to slow down a lot more, and that would give, you know, some of the riders who are not as strong, who will be suffering a bit, a little chance to recover if you're a better bike handler maybe, or, you know, in the wet conditions if you can handle it better.
I was going to say, does it give a different type of rider a slightly better chance if you're if it's wet? I mean, a guy with a better bike handling skill, maybe like a Lars Bohm, for example, who's not used to this race as a senior particularly, but he's a big, strong guy, but he would have very good bike handling skills as a cyclist.
Oh, ze liggen op. Saxo bank, Saxo. Hier kan je Lara hier. Wissel. Hey, kom aan hè. Roste. Nederland. Roste Nederland. De duur. Roeland, oei.
They would, you know, have a better chance of doing a better result in the race, but you know, today, as we see, very dry section, so it's going to be, you know, really fast. When the big guys really start going for it, when they start racing full in the end, well then it's going to be really fast over the corner.
Ja? Get it, no him. No, Valuto hier. Je leest het beetje. Wat dan?
Sean, it's Cancellara is the big favourite. Let's give Tom Bonen a little bit, or one of the big favourites, having just given a big duffing over to Tom Bonen in the Tour of Flanders. It gives Bonen maybe a little bit of a chance to just settle there. There is Cancellara in the Swiss Champions jersey. The guy in front, by the way, is a Danish Champions jersey. I had a young man ask me recently, why have they got two Swiss champions in there? Well, the guy at the front is the Danish champion with the big white cross, with a little white cross, just like the Swiss flag. is Fabian Cancellara. Tom Bonen is in the national champions jersey of Belgium. 3 champions together then. Does it give Bonen a little bit more of an edge, knowing that Cancellara's team are going to have to do all that work to keep things under control?
Well, it's always good to try and spare your forces until the end, and Quick-Step and Tom Bonen's team, they've got to do that because they're not as strong, and we have seen that in the last number of weeks in the Tour of Flanders last week. They are definitely not performing as they were a number of years ago. A few riders have left the team over the past couple of years, and certainly, the Saxo Bank team are the strong ones, but sometimes, that can be also the one where you make mistakes. If you're too strong with a team, you can take it up too early, and if Cancellara finds himself, the Quick-Step, I would say, and also Saxo, they will also send Brechel up there because he's, they're really their second car to play. So it will be interesting to see in the end, will the teams,
Cancellara, then Brechel could go, and vice versa. He might even send Brechel up the road a little bit
without any difficulty. It's not a case that you have to do anything up front as a big favourite. You just have to stay out of danger really and stay with the other big favourites, and from there on there is a lot of very difficult sections from there on, and as you get into the race.
Live pictures then with the man that most people are looking at. Isassi of Euskaltel and Ugelvan and Poulier, both of Sources-Gesson. The weather certainly not as bright and sunny as it was. It's quite breezy out there, quite a headwind, and that's put them about 20 minutes down on schedule, or they were 20 minutes down on schedule. It's slowly eating back, but Saxo Bank really controlling it. As soon as we get to a section of Pave, and they've been through section 18 now, they go across the front of the road and just keep it under control. 107 kilometers to go. Total distance in this race today, 259 kilometers. The last section comes just 1 kilometer before the finish. Really down the middle of the road, actually, is essentially what it is.
See, last week with Tom Bonen, he attacked a long ways out, got Bonen to contribute with the pace setting up front with 2 men, and that was the perfect situation because he knows he has got the strength, he's got the staying power. Cancellara can do that and walk the big favourites over. So again today we could see him maybe attacking and trying to get away very early with 40 kilometers to go with some of the big favourites, and then of course they all have to share their pace and they're pulling up front, the work on the front, and that's what...
Oh, big crash. Somebody's collided with some street furniture and gone sideways, I think. Looks like a Quick-Step. Well, the rider from Francis de Jeux is Timothy Gudsell, the New Zealander. Oh, you're right in the middle of the peloton. Somebody veering sideways. Actually, they didn't collide with the street furniture. Somebody veering sideways and pretty much up towards the front of the group as well. We've seen Gudsell's gone down. One of the Vacances guys has gone down. And just as they sort of moved across to the left, I think, to get out of the way of that island, and 5 or 6 riders all colliding. One from Garmin I can see in there. Now, who is the Garmin rider? It looks very tall. Somebody down on the road again. That's a completely sandwiched wheel. That's a totally different crash. Look at that front wheel. What an utter mess that is. And it's another of the Garmin transition riders. Just have a think about it. That bike there of that man, Fabian Cancellara, what's special about it? Slightly thicker bar tape. You can see the elastomers in the fork and in the back of the seat stays, which is the way that Specialized designed this Roubaix frame, just to absorb some of that, or just to nullify some of the shock. People have used all sorts of things, flex stems, but at the moment, things built into the frame seems to be the way to go. Plus, the biggest, of course, shock absorbing that can happen on these bikes is in the tires. Most of them are running 27s. They're all printed up with different race names, some Specialized, some FMB, and so on. But I tell you what, having a good close look at them this morning, they all look like exact
fast rate, a lot of movement, a lot of action before, and we see the outcome of it. some crashes there before they got onto this section, but when you get over a section, if there's a number of kilometres between that and the following section, it can slow up a lot. So when you have a mechanic, you just have to get back on your bike as quickly as possible, get the change and just get across the cobbled section, and it is possible that it will slow up and you can get back in there. It looks, you know, when you have the initial problem, you can be a long ways off, and but you know, you have to just keep on working at it.
Dear, oh dear, who's that? It's an Isel again, is it?
Yes.
I think it is. Panic setting in for Bernard Isel.
Another Garmin here.
Another Garmin rider on the floor. This is not good news at all.
Van der Velde.
Von Summeren on the floor. Johan von Summeren, another guy I was thinking he was an outside bet. Now he's clutching the. Is that Tyler Farrar? He's clutching the side of his shoulder. Is Johan von Summeren? No, he isn't. No, he's got his hand back on his helmet, which is good. Oh, that's disaster. 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Garmin Transitions team involved in that little accident, and we've already seen 2 of them on the floor. This is turning into a complete nightmare for Jonathan Vorter's team. The team rundown is looking like a team sort of hospital listed, but at the moment, Garmin Transitions, Farrar, Steve Kozza, who's grown that magnificent handlebar moustache back again, Julian Dean, Martijn Mascant, David Miller, Danny Pate, Ricardo van der Velde, and Johan Summeren. Von Summeren. But Von Summeren we've seen on the deck. I'm sure Danny Pate was one of the other guys, and Tyler Farrar was there also. Stuart O'Grady grabs a bit on, a winner himself of Paris-Roubaix. Happy to work for Fabian Cancellara here, 1 minute 32 the gap. But a man who's a good outside bet as well. I mean, you never know. Another wild card. If the other 2 are so heavily marked that nothing can happen. Mighty Bretschel and Fabian Cancellara, then there's always O'Grady there. 1:32 is the gap. It's split up all over the road now with less than 100 kilometers to go. It's all happening here in Paris-Roubaix. Welcome back. We're back live with the Paris-Roubaix. Fabulous race we've got on already, because there's been all sorts of action and not the right sort for some of the teams. Garmin Transitions having an absolute nightmare. Tyler Farrar going down, Johan von Summeren going down, Steve Kozza is with him to try and bring them back. Danny Pate is also there. This is a very select group who've got to the front and stayed out of trouble so far. Thor Hushovd, you can see.
And you can just make out the melee of fans all the way down.
Was that Matt Heyman from Sky, another of my outside bets. George Hincapie is in there for BMC, the American champion. Juan Antonio Fletcher is there. Lars Boom of Rabobank in the orange and the blue. And there's some real champions here. Also, look at the new Italian champions jersey kit for Pipo Pozzato at the back there. The dark blue, I think. I didn't see him this morning at the start. He was keeping himself well out of sight with the Italian flag on it as well. Tom Bonen you can see in there in the Belgian champions jersey next to Juan Antonio Fletcher. And we're Curvers, Docker, Isasi, Eaglevan and Poulier, they're all up ahead by 1:32. Frank Hoy once again on the front. They've got super strength, the Saxo Bank team. Very strong indeed. And it's really Stuart O'Grady who's marshalling them. He's whipping them along. He's keeping them in line. Fabian Cancellara just behind him. Pipo Pozzato has worked his way up towards the front. This is the breakaway group, by the way. The 2 riders from Rabobank at the front of Rick Flens and Tom Lisa. I can see the form of Ignatev just hunched over the bike, just about 6 or 7 back. And what a great, he's a fantastic rider, very strong. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he takes off a little bit from this group, but there's some good riders in here as well. Adam Hansen, the Australian, in here. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a...
Le dernier écart étant de 1 minute et 30 secondes, juste à quelques kilomètres avant la trouée de Robert. Donc il y avait 1 minute 30 au dernier pointage. 1 minute 30.
That's on a counter-attack a little bit later on. Also Jimmy Hugovant. These guys must be wondering what's going to happen to them very shortly as they get to the Arenberg trench. Look at them, they're pushing on, they want to get to the front, they want to get there bit first, get into it at speed. Make sure they're out of the danger zone. And here they go, into the trench of the Arenberg then for the breakaway riders. You could see them getting up to speed. 5 stars for the difficulty rating here. And the crowds are massive here. 2.5 kilometers, the best part of hell. Five stars for the difficulty of the trench of the Arenberg. This is the mining area that riders like Jean Stablinski in the past came from. So many strong riders from around this area. Roubaix in general, big mining area. 1 minute and 19 seconds back to the main group, but they're scattered about all over the place, Sean, following those crashes, and they've just got to try and get on. All the big favourites, though, managing to keep out of trouble as they get towards the Arenberg trench. And underneath they go. And leading them in is Fabian Cancellara. He wants to be up there. He wants to put the hurt on. We saw Bonen do this here last year. He looks over his shoulder. Who's going with?
Ja, goed zijn. Ja, als je dan gewoon even wegrijdt. Ja, ik heb er vorige ook aan niet opgesteld. Ja.
Very nervous times, and everybody is so nervous. They all want to be in the front, and as we see Cancellara here, the best position in the top 2 or 3, certainly. That way you can take your line. You do not have to slow up if there's riders having problems. You do not have to brake, and that means a lot in this one. And to get through this one, I think... thinking, and you start working your tactic for the rest of the day, but to get this one over is it's a great relief without any difficulty. And the riders up front, the 19 riders, we could see them, they were happy because they got to the section there with an advantage.
You see on the left-hand side of your screen, right-hand side of the road, that used to be all open. There's many's the time when you've seen riders taking to that bit of path on there when the weather's been bad. It's Cancellara with Bonen almost alongside him. Juan Antonio Fletcher hunched over the bike in the wheel tracks of Tom Bonen. Tor Hushoff just about a bike length off of them at the moment, and Bonen takes up the pacemaking on the front, hands resting on the top of the bars. You've just got to be as relaxed as possible when you're thundering over these. We're speaking to somebody this morning who takes... sections, and they came back with blisters everywhere all over their hands. He was trying to explain to them not to grip the bars too tightly, just let them bounce, and they were saying, well, we're going to crash if you do that. We just didn't get it. Look how relaxed Bonen is. And Cancellara, all good at the moment. Nobody off yet. Thank goodness, a little bit of cycle crossing on the right-hand side for, looks like, Bretschel. And absolutely pummeling the body at this point. Remember, they've still got 90 kilometers to go. Oh, he looks super smooth, Sean, doesn't he, Bonen? He wants to assert some sort of authority here, I think.
Well, I think he's just thinking... The group is not as broken up as in previous years. Normally there'd be much bigger gaps here. There's quite a good line of riders, so it will be interesting now when they get this one over with. If the big group comes back together again, then we could see a little bit of a downtime, as they say, and the breakout front could hold on for longer, because it did come down pretty quickly there for a moment. But if they can, hold that 1 minute and 12, 1 minute 15, we could.
Down to the teams then. We haven't had even a chance to do that yet. My word, it's been all action since we've been on Quick Step. Katusha, Cervelo, Saxo Bank, Team Sky. We've seen Omega Pharma. We've seen a rider from Liquigas here. Francis de Jure, Milram, B-Box, Bouygues Telecom, Lamprey, Rabobank, Team HTC Columbia, Cofidis, K-Stepan, Vacances Soleil, Skill Shimano, Radio Shack, Euskaltel, AG2R, Garmin Transitions, BMC, Sir Association, we've seen two of, Aqua Sapone here, and Androni Giacottoli are here as well. That's Gianni Savio's new incarnation of the same team, basically, the Dequi Giovanni team. Rubens Bertogliati is their lead man there. Bertogliati, quite a good rider for this sort of race. It's Jeremy Hunt pushing on at the front of this group, which seems to be splitting up a little bit. The breakaway down to less than 1 minute. And our 19 riders. corner together. This is the remnants of the group. Finance is the man at the front now from Quick-Step. Goss, I think, is also in this group. Flens is the big Dutchman in the Rabobank colours. Ugelvon. Now, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Ugelvon pushing on a little more. He's in the yellow shoes, by the way, of Sur Sajasson. That's the outfit he's wearing. Obviously, the team he's riding for with the yellow shoes. Easy to spot him there. Jimmy Ugelvon. A very strong rider, and he's been in very, very good shape. Chris Sutton of Team Sky to the front. Good to see them right up the front. Jeremy Hunt from the Cervelo test team just coming through now with Jimmy Ugelvon to do a turn on the front. This group, Sean, they've whittled down the rest of them. The 11 riders have gone. These are the stronger guys. They're going to push on a little more to see if they can stay away.
Yes, and we can see there they're starting to work together, and the smaller group getting rid of quite a few of the riders. I think it's a good move, because then everybody will pull their weight up front, and it seems to be the case at the moment. Interesting to see now, will they hold at this, or will the gap pull out? And that will depend on what happened back in the group of the big favourites. Will they push on? If some of the bigger favourites maybe have missed the move and they're not up there with Bourne in front.
Yeah, Brett Lancaster getting across, I think, to that group. He's taking with him Sebastianino, is the other rider, I think. Going across, and Mikhail Ignatiev and co slipping backwards. They'll be in the clutches of these riders very shortly. There is Tom Bonin. He has a man with him, a Quick-Step rider with him to look after him. Juan Antonio Fletcher is not letting out of his sight, is he? The Sky rider in the black and white and blue. He hunches over the top of his bars. He makes him look much, much smaller than he actually is, because although Bonin is a very tall rider, Fletcher is not small either, but the way he rides on a bike is very hunched over, and he looks like a much smaller rider than he actually is. There's Stuart O'Grady. He is wingman supremo, isn't he? Matty Bretchel, sort of another protected rider. Sky coming up en masse around Juan Antonio Fletcher. They need men. The race starts to break up. What puncture? Front wheel puncture hip. As soon as the race starts to break up, then it's a case of... Is it De Volder again?
Yes.
Oh, my word, it's not his day, is it? Poor old Stan De Volder. Well, that's something you can .Eurosport@yahoo.com if you've got any questions or comments. We'll try and get to them if there's not too much action. And you can also write in as spokesman on the Twitter feed if you want to tweet to us. Also, Eurosport UK TV. You can follow them on Twitter as well. Our apologies if, at times, it gets incredibly busy. It's all strung out now, all the way across the road. "18 seconds of a gap with 80 kilometers to go."
Now as we get to the 80 kilometers to go, Mark.
How on earth did they do this this race with a fixed gear in the past, says Stephen Pepiat? Well, with great difficulty is the answer to that. I don't know actually who was the last person to race this on fixed gear. Was a long time ago now. I can tell you the race was first run in 1896, run by the German Fischer. So the Octave Lapise was the man. Welcome back. Delayed images there. Here you can see it's Fabian Cancellara getting off his bike. Now, what's initially thought to be a puncture, I think is a problem with the rim, actually. It doesn't look like a puncture to me. A very, very quick bike change. Look at the way he gets on that. That is not Matty Bretchel with him, by the way. It looks as though it could be, doesn't it? It's actually an Aqua Sapone rider. Another of the riders at the side of the road there from Case Tapan with the takeaway riders. And ones and twos just coming off the front of everything. This is Cancellara getting back into the peloton. And Sean, that looked like a bit of an odd one. Didn't look like a puncture to me. Possibly something wrong with the rim there.
Yes, it certainly wasn't a puncture. He changed to a new bike immediately, so it looked like there was a problem. Maybe that the wheel was off through.
Yeah.
And the interesting one with Cancellara was we
halfway through. Well, what is the technique, Sean, for riding on these cobblestones? I mean, obviously picking your line is extremely important. Do you hit it hard? Do you keep a constant pace? How do you relax and keep going on those sections?
Well, you need a lot of power, and you know, the riders that can really
Braided shifter for both the front and rear mech, so that when they've got their hands on the top of the bars, they're in a situation now and they need to change gear, all they have to do is reach across and push that little button. You've got it, but if you can, why not? So that is the lead group still. Rick Flint. Again, still some riders feeling strong in this initial breakaway group, and Flens being one of them. Just that's not Chilinghi. They've got him down as Martin Chilinghi, but I'll tell you that isn't, as they go into section 14 of the cobbles. This is the Touloy section. Once again, pretty rough. Through coming is the main group now, with Michael Barry of Canada and Team Sky on the front. Very strong indeed. He seems to have come of age finally, Michael Barry. He's one of those trains you can just keep going and going and... finding it very difficult to keep up to some sort of speed with anything, really. Stéphane Poulier was the rider at the back for Sochasson. You just saw that. You can see how tall Barry is. He's really hunched over the bike, and he's still big. He's as big as Tom Bonan, probably slightly bigger. But doing a fine job here, Sean, because he's put a split in the group behind, just about. And they're eating up the rest of the members of the breakaway now.
Yes, and you know, this is where you can do a lot of damage and really make a lot.
Holz,
Ja. Vertel eventjes. Binnen? Milar! 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 Oei, oei. Zengle! Oei, oei.
The tactic, and you know, it's calculated pretty much, you know, as you go on in the race, depending on the situation, the tactic is worked out. And if you have a few teammates, well then I suppose you can do that. You can afford to sacrifice one man at least.
Looks like the day is over for David Miller in terms of staying with the favourites. He's dropping right off the back very quickly indeed. There's the peloton, or the group of favourites here. The front group split either side of this very rough section of cobbles through Beuvray.
Go on, eh? Come on, eh?
Section when we get to the Orchies a little bit later on. That will then become very significant indeed. 1, 2, 3 Sky Riders up towards front. That's good going. Tom Bonen at the head of affairs in the Belgian champions jersey. Behind him, Juan Antonio Fletcher of Sky, number 41. On his right, at the right-hand side of your shot there, Thor Hushoff, who's not been in super form, had such bad luck last year, crashing out when he had a real chance. That's Hutorovic at the back. On the left-hand side of the road, number 75, Stuart O'Grady. Well, he's done an awful lot of work so far. And O'Grady, maybe they're just thinking, well, he's done his bit. He's...
Go on, eh?
Teammates around them to help. He just has to do this by himself.
Yes, and it is difficult, you know, when you're on your own. You're always worried about, well, you know, when it really starts to go up front and this group starts to split, the car and the service is always a long ways off. And if you haven't got a teammate with you and a mechanical problem, a flat tyre, well, then you can, you know, really have to wait quite a while and lose a lot of time. And getting back in, if you ever get back into the front group, back up with the main favourites, that is the most worrying. It's not that you know that you want them there to do something.
Ja, inderdaad. En Poulies en Zengle. Kom aan, hè. Willems daar. Ja. Oh, wat vergeet ook. Noem eens jongens. Ja, staat. Lang was dat.
Goss, Hunt. Sorry, Hansen, Hunt, Sutton. And Vinance. Vinance will then provide extra support if he's still got anything in the legs for Tom Bonen. Sky looking very good indeed. 4 men in the group when Sutton gets back to them. The main group is almost upon the breakaway. Stan de Volder, is it, on the left-hand side?
Yes.
Well, I never. Stan de Volder been on the deck. Had a front wheel change, all the luck was... Professional on the continent for a long time. He came up the old way, old school riding, not through the British cycling academy system. He's been around far too long for that, a little bit like Roger Hammond, even more so than an old traditional rider. Spent most of his time riding in teams in France, northern France mainly, although he did move to south of France for a while. Enjoyed his time down near Monaco. Is Guidon, Frédéric Guidon, winning in 1997. He's riding today for Francis de Jeux. In fact, he won Paris-Tour a decade after he won Paris-Roubaix. Quite an extraordinary achievement. It's amazing he's still riding in this event. Super long career.
And of course, Bonin going for 2 records, as you said.
He's going away as well. He's
yes.
having to follow Fabian Cancellara at the moment.
Cancellara starting to push on, and yeah, it's the position where, you know, a long ways out. Is he going to do it once again today? And 62 kilometers to go here. It's really a long ways out at the moment. And I think if Cancellara does that, he starts to push it on early. We will see Bonin not maybe too keen to ride with him earlier on. Last week he did, you know, he did do that, and I think he paid a bit in the end. So he will try and, you know, keep a number of riders with him as long as possible. And we can see here he's not taking over the front from Cancellara at the moment, and I think we will see more of that as we go on, because Cancellara know if he can take riders like Bonin and maybe 1 or 2 other of the big favourites with him up front, with a group of 4 or 5, he's by strong the farthest, and the strongest, and he can, you know, really walk them down over the long distance. But going back to Bonin, he's going for 2 records, of course, 3 in the row, and to equal Roger de Vlaming's also the all-time record of 4. So it's 2 records for Bonin to take today if he can win this one.
Not bad going. Cancellara in this group now. Pushed on a little bit, and straight into the wheel tracks came Tom Bonin, as did Vinance, going flat out. Here we go, Vinance. Crikey, that would have been a big one to hit. That's a... Trying to chase back on again. This man has really had an up and down race so far. And he's got for company at the moment Mathieu Claude of Bouygues Telecom. That is the favourites group up ahead.
Crashes, mechanical problems, and here again he's going into chase.
This is Bonin going.
Bonin.
What is... Bonin's attacked. I mean, Bonin's attacked big style. Look at this. 60 kilometers to go, and Tom Bonin has gone. Now, whose wheel is he on here? Is that Hansen or is that Eisel? Let's have a look. Must be... It can't be Eisel, because Eisel's been down the leg. It's Hansen. He's right behind him, and now he's forced Fabian Cancellara to close the gap. No real problems. Tor, is that Tor Huzhoft who's closed the gap with him? Looks a little bit like him. Over the top of that traffic island they go. Juan Antonio Fletcher working back up. That was a big, big dig by Tom Bonin. And Bonin attacks again. He's not going to let it go easily. He's not going to let Cancellara ride away like he did last time. The dust is being thrown up by the motorbike in front, and he's given it a massive dig. It's Juan Antonio Fletcher is the next man in line. One of the riders coming up now is Fabian Cancellara. He's having to close the gap again. He's forcing him to do this work, Sean.
Yes, and it's surprising to see Bonin taking it up. We would be expecting Cancellara, and that was the forecast going into this race, that Cancellara would be the one who would attack, but Bonin is really putting it up to him, and taking it up and going in the attack. But we can see Cancellara here at the moment, just closing down to Bonin, and allow him to hang out there for a little bit. Maybe he was coming up to him very, very quickly, but it seems like he's just allowing Bonin stay out there with 4 or 5 bike lengths of an advantage.
Presumably he's just hoping that he's going to wear himself out with this constant attacking, but there's still 58 kilometers to go. Not much chance of that, I wouldn't think. He's looking super strong, Bonin. Pozzato coming up in a third spot, and a Husoft. This is looking... yeah, there's Hammond there, but I haven't seen him ahead. He's rather is behind that.
And the interesting one is that Cancellara, we don't see any from Saxo Bank here.
No.
We did hear over race radio Bretschel was having problems with the name. I don't know, was it a mechanical problem? Was he losing continuity with the group? But it did say his name came over race radio, which was pretty broken at the time. But it is, you know, interesting to see now that considering this, you know, the strong team, and that sometimes when you have a really strong team, you get a little bit too confident and maybe you take up the race too early. And I would you know, be concerned with that today, that the Saxo Bank really took it up at a point when it was not nearly really necessary, because the breakaway out front did not have a huge advantage, as we talked about it a bit earlier. And I would, as a rider in Cancellara's position, you know, to sit back, take it a bit easy, and hopefully get your men further into the final. And now we see the outcome. He hasn't got any teammate, I don't think, in this leading group with him. And just looking back, we see Bonin there really opened the pace for a while. That was around the moment when Bretschel was had the problem or whatever it was. I think that was the reason that we see Bonin really just opened the pace to make it difficult for Bretschel to get back in, because he knows that if he allowed Bretschel to get back into this leading group, well, then that would be a difficult one with the two strongest riders from Saxo Bank in the leading group.
Strong riding by Sebastianino. And here he is. Look at that chain bouncing around there. Using the SRAM components, I think these go. Bonin's gone on the attack again. That's another push, and that's a really big hard one. Out of the saddle on the cobblestones, and really, really trying to thunder away from everybody. Tor Husoft is trying to go with him.
Lukemans, who was fourth last week, a very good performance.
Yeah, very good.
Again, you know, he's shown it here at the moment, reacting immediately to the attack of Bonin.
Lurking, though, is Pipo Pozzato, and Fabian Cancellara not panicking, still sitting in the saddle, just eating up the gap rather than anything else. It actually wasn't Husoft who went across to them, it was Hammond. Hammond is on Bonin's right-hand shoulder now, with Lukemans there as well. Still Sebastianino ahead of the rest of them, but not by hardly any gap at all now. There he is. Frederic Guidon, by the way, who was in that group, if he'd have gone away and stayed away and won the event, he would have been by far the oldest rider ever to have won Paris-Nice. He's 39 years of age.
Maar niet om in de stof, hè? Ja. Oei. Wat de golven zeker?
Come up behind him with Omega Pharma. It was Jürgen Rollins, I think. Nicely obscured vision by the motorcycle there. 50 kilometers to go. That's a good ride by Eno.
plekje dit, hè? Oh man. Oh! Dat zijn al de notten. Ah, zullen we. Ja, kan hij.
Behind them, Bonen, Leukemans, Cancellara, Eisel, Khrushchev, Hammond. Well, good riding by, can he just tuck back in this group, Sean, and just get a little bit of recovery and hang in there?
Yes, I think he can recover, and he was, I think, going out front with the hope that he would be joined by some other riders, but Bonen and the other favourites keep the pace very high. As we see once again, more attacks here. That's going to be the case.
It's Hoster
having a go here. They all know now that there's a little bit of rivalry here between the big favourites, and surprisingly, Cancellara.
Very difficult man to let get away. He was right. He was riding very well last week in the Tour of Flanders, Sean. He looked very strong.
Yes, and he's coming into shape at the right time.
The boy in blue here. Time off at the back. Time for a little bit of a drink and a rest, says Tom Bonen, as he says somebody else better take up the chase. He falls behind this little group of 9 or 10 riders.
Well, it's quite a nice situation for him, because if he's got a group of 3 or 4 riders off the front and he can bridge them on a section of cobblestones, then all of a sudden he's got a couple of allies. And bear in mind, 2 of the riders in that leading group of 3 are from Belgium.
50 kilometres to go. The riders will have seen that for sure, as they've slowed right down here now. Number 18 at the back is Stijn Vandenberg. Shot to the top once as a winner of the Tour of Ireland. Never seen too much of him since, to be quite honest. He's in there now.
Oh, watch out for this. This is Cancellara going to make his move now. He's seen that Bonen is a little bit too far back, and this is a move they can't let a man like this ride off the front.
Well, that's a classic, isn't it? Fabian Cancellara has just accelerated away from the field. He noted Tom Bonen go to the back, and there he is. And now he's decided to go. Well, Tom Bonen may have made a mistake. He's certainly going to have to waste some energy now to contain the Swiss rider. You can't let a man time trial his way when you're the world and Olympic champion.
Well, this is a very...
Cancellara has put in a big dig at the front. He's got away super style from the rest of them. And now Bonen's being forced to react, and this will drag everybody else along. I did wonder whether he was just letting Bonen wear himself out, battering everybody else. And nobody's going to help him much, except maybe Juan Antonio Fletcher. Khrushchev may do something to shut it down. It'll come to a point where Cancellara gets so far ahead that they'll all have to work together, Sean. Surely, there was a big attack.
Yes, and the big surprise was that Bonen did not react immediately.
Can't react, maybe.
Yes, considering he was, very aggressive for quite a while there, and suddenly when Cancellara takes it up, Bonen doesn't react, because you've got to react immediately with Cancellara. Once he takes 15-20 seconds, so difficult to take him back, and Bonen, he have to rely now on the help from the rest of the riders back there. But will they or can they? That is the question.
Will they or can they? It looked like all the pace was going out of it for a little bit of a second. It's no good. Leif Hoster looking over his shoulder saying, come on, give me a hand. They were miles behind him. Hoster riding very strong. Now Bonen's getting the front. He has to shut this one down. Straight past goes Cancellara. And Leukemans, he did this last week. He just hung on to the coattails of other riders. This time he's done it again. He's got onto the rear wheel of Fabian Cancellara. That's a great attack by Cancellara. He's got up to this leading group, but he's gone straight past them. Hoster working super hard to get back on that wheel. Leukemans was the one who reacted immediately. And Bonen's dragging his rivals along with him. It's Khrushchev, Fletcher in the wheel. And Bonen is going to get across, I think. Oh, look at the pressure that Cancellara is putting on. and nobody is being able to hold him easily. If he keeps riding like this, he's going to ride away from everybody. Surely Leukeman's digging in, crawling his way back up. He's one bike length off. Now a half a bike length. He's got there. He's just going to hang into that wheel now. Leif Hoster, who looked so strong, so aggressive, is struggling to stay with this man. And the Swiss winner of the Tour of Flanders the last weekend, he's just rolled away from them. Hoster's gone by the look of it. It doesn't look like he can stay on that pace. Bonen's being forced to do all the work. Pozzato is the last man in this group. And they've shed the rest of them. It's Bonen. Fletcher is doing well out of this little group here, as is Thor Hushovd and Pipo Pozzato. Fletcher, to me, Sean, is one of the riders who's done so little work and has yet always been able to stay in there at the moment.
Yes, well, to stay in there at the moment, you're doing a very good job, because Bourne is really trying here, and we can see that I think Roger Hammond was still in there. So, you know, with Hushovd, Hammond, surely they will sacrifice one of their riders to try and to get back in. Fletcher, also a rider who, you know, will do his share of work when they get off this section. But I think Cancellara is really, you know, putting on the pressure here, as Bourne is, as we can see here. So the interesting thing now, once we get over this section, you know, will they ride well together? And Bourne certainly needs some of the riders like Fletcher, Hushovd to ride with him if he's going to close down this one. As we see, Cancellara rides away from Leukeman's. That is absolutely incredible. Look at this man. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ever aspire to a pair of legs as a cyclist, it is this man's. Fabian Cancellara has just ridden away from everybody. Bjorn Leukeman's the last man to try and hang in there. He crawled back up to his rear wheel, and now he's gone. It took him every last bit of energy, but this man is still going. Watch this. Oh! Leukeman's not happy with the motorbike there. He says that Cancellara is getting the drafting from the motorbike, and he's trying to get it to move on. But you know, still 45 kilometers to go. Cancellara, you know, it's a long road to the velodrome here in Roubaix, and if the riders can get together here, you know, as we can see, you know, riders really in trouble. But when you get off this section, give them a moment, and if they can start to work together with Bourne, and we could see them, you know, claw back the advantage of Cancellara when we get off the cobbled sections. Cancellara then exits the cobbles. He looks behind him. He's got nobody with him. He has to ride himself now. He has to time trial this way to the end now. What an incredible bit of riding. Well, Bjorn Leukeman's maybe annoyed with the motorcycle, but Cancellara was going so fast. The motorbike couldn't go any faster. No, I don't think so. Not to keep the cameraman on board. There's Leukeman's. He's been brought back by Leif Hoster now. Hoster grabs the bidon. It's still a big group, as you say, Sean. They could still work together. 20 seconds now is the gap. Pozzato, Hushovd, Hammond, Hoster, Fletcher, Eno. It's Hammond who worked his way back onto this group, so that's he must have had to dig very deep to get there. Bonen taking up the pacemaking. Well, if he's in this group, he's going to be forced to do it. He's trying to get other riders to come through. Very difficult. Yes, well, when you get to 30 seconds... Look, watch this, watch this, watch this. This is the slow-mo. Look at the attack. My word. That's enormous acceleration. He just went straight up the inside, and he pulled a gap out of, what, 20, 30 bike lengths in... Join us with live pictures here on Paris-Roubaix. It's 48 seconds now, the gap. It is not even funny for these riders anymore. Look at it. 48 seconds. It's going to go out to a minute very shortly if they're not careful. Leif Hoster was throwing his arms in the air, saying, come on, we've got to work together. This is the further group back with Bernhard Eisel sitting on the back here. He's got Hansen with him. He's got another rider with him. I can't see who it is at the moment, trying to drag him back up to the group. They're in further 15 seconds down. There's George Hincapie, the American champion. Close, but no cigar again for George by the look of it, unless they can get back up there. There is Eisel, who goes through.
Lloyd Mondori is the rider from AG3 Le Mondial. I think everybody, because the group is so good, Sean, everybody reluctant to chase down dramatically because they'll get sprung and somebody else will go off the front. There's too many good riders, almost.
Yes, and the problem is still 37 kilometres to go. I think they're calculating, as we see, it just goes over the minute at the moment. There's some of them there maybe calculating, but if you're starting to, you know, feel the effects under a bit of pressure here, it's the normal thing that you do. You try and, you know, not take too many pulls on the front. And as you said, you know, the riders like Bonin here, Posato probably some of the stronger riders, Fletcher, who's in very good form, and then you look at the other ones, you know, Hino, Post, they're going to say, well, I'm not going to really give it 100% here because they're riders that are in better form and have been showing better form over the last couple of weeks.
104 for Fabian Cancellara, the Swiss national champion. Actually looks great in that jersey, I have to say. He's just ridden away from his main rivals, including Pippo Pozzato, Tom Bonin, Thor Hushovd. From this man back to George Hincapie and Bernard Eisel. He's not slowing down, Sean. There may be a lot of people wanting him to slow down in Director Sportive's cars, but he's not slowing down. He's looking very, very strong.
He's certainly given the impression at the moment that he's you know, just going at the same rate as he was a number of kilometres ago. But again, you know, 35 kilometres, can he hold this out? And there's always the risk, but the gap at the moment, like it's a comfort zone there over the minute advantage, unless they can really, you know, get up their game.
To be in Bonin's favour today. He was after a third win in a row and also trying to become a four-time winner and equal the record of Roger de Vlamingh for overall wins, but it looks like he's going to be stuck on 3 at the moment. 1:31. The gap isn't going out as quickly as it was, Sean, but it's still going out second by second.
Yes, and I think Cancellara in the beginning, he wanted to pull out the gap quickly, and the reason being to get the team car to be allowed up to follow him. You know, that is probably the tactic also, because if you depend on the neutral service, well, then you haven't got a bike, and it's so easy here to have a major problem. You know, you can have a bike, a frame can break. Again, the group behind of George Hincapie, you know, they have to calculate on that, how far they, you know, further down the road before you start attacking out front. And I think everybody in this group, you know, are going to be getting tired, and some of them are, I think, really starting to suffer, and that is also going to push the idea of going the attack a bit further on into this race, because still with over 30 kilometres to go, it's you know, it's a long ways to go, and there's not a lot of riders around to take it up like Cancellara and just time trial out front on your own. So I don't think we will see them until the last you know, 10 kilometres before they will start attacking each other in this chasing group.
Bonin's on the front again and winding it up, to be frank, just a little bit. Fletcher's in his wheel. Hushovd and Hammond are at the back, beginning to struggle, I think, a little bit. Although the gap is still going out there, is Thor Hushovd. He's not been in the greatest of shape. He's not had a very good early start to the season, Sean, Thor Hushovd, but he seems to have come good in terms of fitness for today.
Yes, he has come a long ways. You know, he had a difficult start to the season before the opening race situation before, and he has a team car out there with him, and I don't think we're going to see any problems for Cancellara. It's a matter of now how much he can pull out the gap, because there is a situation here with our leaders. There's a number of those riders who are going to start, you know, missing turns here. They're going to be thinking about, you know, to get the best pace possible and to conserve as much energy as possible, and you know.
For Fabian Cancellara. Well, these riders must be wondering what on earth they can do to stop a man of Fabian Cancellara's ability. I have to say, that man there looked impressive for me today. Leif Hoster looked as though he'd actually had some real legs today. And when he went hard. Other riders not capable or didn't want to contribute with him. And here comes Cancellara into this Sisson section. Huge crowds. We haven't heard any of the problems, by the way, that we had last year with spectators just wandering randomly across the pavé, although we haven't got to the Carrefour section yet, which is Carrefour de l'Arbre, which is where they've had a lot of problems in the past. A lot of people coming out of the local bars and completely tanked up. I guess the only thing that you could slow this man down other than hitting the wall.
Là, Cancellara is there. Come on, Fabian!
Knock great lumps out of him.
Yes, but I don't think the situation of getting into into a situation where you're going to crash is not going to be Cancellara, because he has the advantage, and he's in the cornering, and that he's going to knock it off a bit, take no major risk. And the only thing is, the spectators, as you said, we did have the problem last year in the Carrefour de l'Arbre where the people were crossing the road a lot, although this year there's a lot of police out there. I was reading one of the French papers where the camping cars also, they have taken away from the side of the road and put them a bit further away from the route of the race. So I think in the Carrefour de l'Arbre we will not see as much people being allowed to wander across the road as the riders is coming as we did last year.
The AG2 Le Mondial bike rider, the motorcycle rider ahead, you saw him on his Kawasaki standing up. Incidentally, a lot of the cars, we talk about bikes being altered for this, or not altered as the case may be, as technology goes on. To clear some of the worst sections of cobblestones. These are our 8 chasing riders. They are Leif Hoster at the front there in the white. Behind him is Thor Hushovd in the black with the white helmet of Cervelo Test Team. The other black and white rider there is Roger Hammond, the smaller of the 2 riders. Then the Belgian champion Tom Bonen is in here. Pippo Pozzato, the Italian road race champion, with the black jersey and Italian flag on it in the group. Juan Antonio Fletcher in the colours of sky, black and white with that blue stripe down the back. Post-war gap, shall we say? Just mail it in, and cycling.eurosport@yahoo.com. That would be very handy. Chapeau to the cameraman hanging over the back of that bike there. And the gendarmerie coming through. Oh, there comes the first of the attacks. It's Juan Antonio Flecha. That's a big dig because Tom Bonen's trying to go with him and he's gone hard.
Yes, and we can see that Bowen, really trying to get back in here, but having difficulty closing it down. And again, Fletcher, the surprising one is that nobody reacted immediately when Cancellara went, because if you're not on the Swiss train when it's pulling out, well, then it's over. You're never going to get on once it's left the station. And I was surprised that Bowen, did not really react much quicker when we see Cancellara attacking. You can see now who is, the better one, and Fletcher here, able to ride away from this group. That tells us that he still had a lot of power left, and disappointing that he did not react immediately, because I think if Fletcher was in the wheel of Cancellara, he would not be.
Allez Fabian, allez Fabian!
He would have maybe difficulty getting them out, but again, the attack by Cancellara was very, very well calculated.
Extremely well calculated. Look went up the inside when they were looking the other way, really. Tyre pressure's running not as high as you would be on a normal road race. And most of the shock absorption in any of these bikes.
Come on! Touch! Roland, irgendwie. Roland
EMC. And just always up against somebody who has been that much stronger at the period. And if you take the situation, if Cancellara wasn't in that excellent form he is at the last number of weeks, well, then Fletch would be really in for it here, and with a possibly winning this one. So he is having a very good season, and I think he's that bit stronger this season than he has been in the past.
This is the back of the group with Bonen. And there's only 5 of them left at the moment. I'm afraid that that little dig by Juan Antonio Fletcher, followed by Tom Bonen, well, partially followed by Tom Bonen, has got rid of a whole bunch of them now, including Leif Hosta and Sebastian Eno. 2:17 is the gap. Still looking super strong. 21.9 kilometers to go. This is the man in second place now, a lone figure of Juan Antonio Fletcher. Shoulders hunched up, digging in deep. 2:15 back to Fletcher now, 2:24 to the group of Tom Bonen. He's only got 11 seconds gap. He's given it a go. But it's Tor Hushovd who's doing a great deal of the work here to try and pull back Juan Antonio Fletcher. Is Bonen going to go here? No, he's just going to move to the left-hand side, just wind the pace up a little bit. Fletcher's not got it, Sean. He's not going to get away.
No, it is, they're working well together. We can see their Hushovd, pulling it. Posato is paying the price today.
Wonderful people writing in. Thank you ever so much. It's very kind of you. 5:21. Eddie Merckx over Roger de Vlaming in 1970. 4:16. Ballerini won over Taffy in 1998. And in fact, there's been a lot about Ballerini naturally here. They've dedicated this race to the memory of Franco Ballerini. Unfortunately died earlier this year as when he was being a co-driver in a rally near his home in Tuscany. So we think that 5:21 is the gap. Merckx to De Vlaeminck. Thanks for that.
For Pozzato, I don't think we can see him getting a place on the podium.
Well, as far back as 2004, that man there, Fabian Cancellara, not wearing the champions jersey at that time, came into the Roubaix Velodrome alongside one of the men in this group here, Roger Hammond, along with Magnus Backstedt, now working, of course, for Eurosport. He'll be with me on the Tour of Turkey. Well, interestingly, it was Cancellara in that day who opened the door for Magnus to go through. When they come onto the velodrome, of course, it's still a road race. There's no track rules apply. And when Hammond into the fourth section of the Carrefour de l'Arbre goes Fabian Cancellara, leader of this race, bidding to become another winner here. Just look at that rear tyre bouncing. You can see how much it gets compressed when it hits a big Harat. Right almost down under the rim. They run quite a low tyre pressure in there. Just bouncing around all over the place. It's not slowing him down at all, though, and the crowd's absolutely rammed in here further on. This is where you've got to be very, very careful. One momentary lapse in concentration in these last 2 or 3 sections, Sean, could be the end of your day.
Yes, and doesn't look like for Cancellara that he's tiring. We've seen some of the shots there. You know, he's very concentrating, yes, very, very well, but also looks, unbelievably fresh. And still putting in a huge effort here, considering like it's grown out to 2 minutes 53. He's still pushing on, quite strong. As we said earlier, it's just a matter of how much time he can put into the chasing group. It's coming to a situation, excuse me, where it's the gap is so big now for Cancellara. The interest is gone a little bit out of the race.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Yeah.
That's just too strong, and when you have a rider like that, it's too strong. When Cancellara, it takes a bit from the race as well. That excitement of the final, which we had last year, is not there anymore. And still, these riders are giving it everything here, just working away. It's the best of his life.
No, for sure, absolutely the best of his life. He is one of the great riders of his generation. Is he the most complete rider of his generation? I don't know. He's not yet shown us the form that he could win a Grand Tour, but he can certainly knock spots off most people in a time trial. And look at this riding here. 3 minutes and 1 second is the gap. Those 5 men unable to bring him back at all. So this is the race, really, Sean, isn't it? Who is going to take second and third spot? That is what the race comes down to now.
Yes, and I think we will see, the best part of the action will come from this group now, because they're going to attack each other, and some of the riders here who haven't got a very good sprint. Who is the better better sprinter. He will try and control the situation. But I think on these final sections we could see the likes of Fletcher going in the attack again. If he has still some power left, he has to do that, because his only way of getting on the podium is to get away from some of the better sprinters that he's in with at the moment.
Presumably we'll look at Leukemans jumping on any attack that Fletcher were to launch, or could be the other way around, of course. There's some...
3 minutes.
Getting a tiny bit tired. Third, section 3, this is Brusson. It's short and it's relatively easy, this one, 1.1 kilometers, fairly well laid out, but I tell you what, after 200 kilometers or so, this is still hard going. All he needs now, but in this race, it's never over till it's over. We say, barring all incident, that this man is going to ride in alone, 3 minutes and 10 seconds ahead as he is at the moment. But it's never over till it's over in bike racing, especially in Paris-Roubaix. One little slip, one lapse of concentration, one spectator stepping out or even just stumbling a little bit, and bringing down Cancellara would be disastrous for him, especially if he tumbles very hard. He might well get back on, but the time he may lose running in could be huge. We saw what happened last year.
There is it. Fabian, come on!
Trouble going with him. He wants Fletcher to come through and give him a hand and shut down Husov, although Husov's not getting away. Try and pile on the pressure now. And Husov's trying to get away to go. He's got back onto the wheel now. Fletcher.
Pushing it on the limit here. We see Thor Hushovd, having a big go there, and they were having, having difficulty closing them down, but now we have riders really scattered, and as we can see, Lukemans is losing ground here. Roger Hammond also with Pozzato just getting back into the wheel of Roger Hammond.
Juan Antonio Fletcher is forcing the pace along. They've broken the elastic, I think. It seems to be that way. Fletcher is pushed on really hard. And he has Thor Hushovd in his wheel. Bonen is trying to go with him. Hammond is trying to get onto that wheel of Tom Bonen. He's going to get there. Roger Hammond gets on. So at the moment, it's 3 minutes and 5 seconds back to Juan Antonio Fletcher and Thor Hushovd. Then Tom Bonen with Roger Hammond in the wheel. Has Pippo Pozzato managed to just latch onto the back of this once again? Well, it would be better if we saw a full shot, wouldn't it? But we didn't. That's great riding by both Hushovd, and we've seen that Fletcher has had a go once already, but I'm mightily impressed by Hushovd here.
Yes, it's a good performance by Hushovd. As we mentioned earlier, he's coming from a long ways. His form wasn't great in the last number of weeks, but has been improving all the time, and putting in a very good performance here, and to be. There with Fletcher, we see Fletcher earlier on, and maybe he didn't give it 100% when he went in that early attack. Maybe it was just a little bit of a test or a feel to see how the other riders would react. Advantage. 5 minutes for Cancellara, that's over a long time. So if they can work well together, Fletcher, Hushovd, they can get on the podium, which is be a major performance.
Well, Hushovd not coming through. Maybe he can't come through to help Juan Antonio Fletcher as he flicks the elbow to say, come on, I need some help here. Lukemans and Pozzato have got back onto the wheel. Lukemans is beginning to suffer here. He's having to sprint to stay on, and Pozzato done well again to get there. Bonen, Pozzato, Hammond, Lukemans is this group here. 3:05 is the gap. A bit of playing going on now, I think. They'll be looking at each other to see if they want to shut down these two here. They are fighting for second now, Hushovd and Fletcher. 2:44 the gap. Well, they've done well to eat in that much into Fabian
and Hushovd, for that matter. If you're in the wheel and when they go in the attack, the drafting, and people do not realize that how much of an effect it has when you're riding on the front, and when you can stay in the slipstream of somebody. The amount you can save, the amount of energy you can save is huge. But when Cancellara got 10 seconds, 15 seconds of advantage, well, then it was always going to be difficult to see him being pulled back.
Do you think riders like Juan Antonio Fletcher maybe suffer a little bit in terms of slightly scared of the power of Fabian Cancellara? When he goes, they think, well, if I try...
Quite big tours, even in the major three-week tours. When he's really in form, he can go a long ways in the mountain stages, and the performance he's able to put in the time trials over the past number of years, it's. I think he's the best. For me, I think he's the best all-rounder.
I might tend to agree with you. This is the penultimate section of Pavé. It's Hem. And there's no signs of Fabian Cancellara faltering. Maybe the gap is coming down very slightly, but that is about it. Behind him, Juan Antonio Fletcher and Thor Hushovd are bidding to become second and third. Who will become second and third, we don't know yet. But they pulled out a handy gap over the Tom Bonen group behind them with 7.4 kilometers to go. in this penultimate section of Paris, it's Cancellara all the way. These two, Heujoft on the right-hand side, and the Sky Rider there, Juan Antonio Fletcher. It was too late to bring back Fabian Cancellara, and they are really vying for the minor honours here. Well, Thor Heujoft managed to stay upright this time, and once again, no Paris-Roubaix for Juan Antonio Fletcher, Sean. Once again.
No, and you know, it's difficult for 5 kilometres. If he got into that group, he could, you know, one that could win a Paris-Roubaix, and he definitely put in a very good performance here again today to be up here with this class of rider, and you know, going to finish, you know, very high up in the placings once again today. You know, a magnificent performance.
The gap has settled down again. 2:41 between our two chasing riders, or our two. Chasing is hardly the word, really. The two riders behind, Thor Heujoft and Juan Antonio Fletcher. They're possibly not going to pull off a Classics win this year.
Well, I think this is going to be a difficult time for Tom, because you know, the Classics, Flanders-Roubaix, he's a very important part of the beginning of season, and not performing well today. And I think for Bonin, the difficulty is not being able to stay with the other favourites, as we can see Fletcher and Heujoft riding away from there on a section of cobbles, and he, you know, not in the best of shape today, and that's going to be the most difficult one. I think the Belgian press will be a little bit difficult with Bonin, that at least if he wasn't able to, you know, be able to match Cancellara, he should have been, you know, the next best man, and that, you know, it's for Bonin, it's not going to be the best of beginning of seasons.
Certainly isn't. And what about in the Sky Bus when they do the post-mortem of this race? What will they be saying about Juan Antonio Fletcher here? That maybe they should have latched him onto Cancellara a little earlier.
Well, yes, you will always start, you know, making the calculations, and
he's going. Look, he's going to try and get away from Thor Heujoft.
Yes, and this is his chance here, because it's a little bit kicks up a bit here for 200 metres, and you know, Fletcher know that if he can really put Heujoft in difficulty.
This is the final bit.
From that's what he's got to do, but we can see Heujoft reaction very, very quickly. But Fletcher, I think he will be happy if, you know, getting on the podium, that is a good performance.
Yes, indeed. Diana Rees and co in the car, congratulating Fabian Cancellara, and rightly so. Just catches a bit of paper and gets rid of it, which is on the foot. Remember that although it says 2.27, has he got the little angel out again like he had last weekend? Although it's 1.9 kilometres to go. There it is. Same as it was last weekend. 1.9 kilometres to go. Remember, some of that is taken up by going around the velodrome here in Roubaix. He's not very far from entering the velodrome now. Well, he's a happy man, and I'm not surprised. 2 in a row for Fabian Cancellara. I think Sean, okay, I'm going to go agree with Sean. I think he's the greatest all-round rider of his generation now. Maybe not the greatest Grand Tour rider, greatest all-rounder. Fabian Cancellara, attacked with over 40 kilometres to go, nearer 50 kilometres than 40 kilometres, and nipped off the left-hand side of the road while they were spread out to the right. Maybe, I think the wind was probably coming from their right shoulder. They were just in a tiny echelon on the right-hand side of the road. He took the chance, went up the left-hand side against the wind, and really motored away. Took an enormous gap out of them almost immediately, and nobody reacted straight away, and that was it. Left him off and running by himself. Now it all comes down to who can salvage what from this now. Pozzato, he's done so well to stay there. Bonin, as you say, Sean, suffering even behind other people. Leukeman's putting on the pressure, and Hammond going with him. They're vying for the minor places. This is the last bit of cobbles. As I said, it's a section straight up the middle of the road between the two carriageways. It's almost a road to glory, this. It's a parade section of cobbles for Fabian Cancellara. The crowds on either side of the road cheering this man home. They know how good he is. He's going to swing right into the last kilometre. He's going to come into the velodrome here in Roubaix.
Coming in. Coming in. There he is.
He's got time to wave to them as well. Here we are, we're going to look down on it. There's a cafe there in that white. A time of 6 hours and 34 minutes just about. After an absolutely masterful display of attacking riding. He's combined everything he's good at. He was tactically astute, he was super strong, his time trialing ability, that huge kick he's got, and the crowd absolutely love it. They're lapping it up here. He's got time to sit and enjoy this. His winning margin over 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He's probably eased up a little bit now, but why not enjoy it? He did it last weekend in Flanders. I think he's done it even more.
Cancellara! Cancellara! Schitterend. Schitterend.
Into the finish line. Double tops for the Swissman. Fabian Cancellara takes a win in the Tour of Flanders and another win here in Paris-Roubaix, 4 years after his first. It's his season. He is #1. Cancellara on top of the world. Well, a huge flood of emotion for him. Well, we'll wait to see who comes through for second and third. But while we do, Sean, what does it feel like to cross that line? Do you literally just everything ebb out of your body when you come over the line, or are you so pumped up you just keep going?
Well, depending on the situation that you arrive in Cancellara's situation, you know, he had all the time in the world to just to salute the crowd as he went around, and you know, that feeling is great because he can relax a bit in that final kilometre.
They're on the track.
I never had that. It was always down to a sprint, unfortunately.
Oh well, a win's a win. Doesn't matter how you get it. Here we are. This is going to be the sprint for second. It's Juan Antonio Fletcher and Thor Hushovd. Fletcher will not be looking forward to this one because Hushovd is the better sprinter by a country mile. They take the bell here on this concrete velodrome. Fletcher is just leading Hushovd around. I think he must be resigned to the fact that he's going to get jumped if he's not careful towards the end. Coming down the...
Here we go. On top.
Well, he winds it up. Hushovd still in the saddle. Out of the saddle on the inside goes Thor Hushovd, smartly in front, and comes home for a second place in Paris-Roubaix, and a big clap by Juan Antonio Fletcher. Very graceful indeed. Fletcher takes third spot here. Hushovd a very, very good second, Sean.
Yes, I think considering his beginning of season, as we mentioned, Hushovd, he really just came from a long ways back form-wise, and to get on the podium here in Paris-Roubaix, a great performance, as is for Fletcher.
Yeah, very much so. So another third spot for Sky. Here come the next riders. They take the bell as we watch Fabian Cancellara on screen. Well, we're not hearing the interview, of course, but I can tell you what's going out on the track while Cancellara gets interviewed. This is Loikemans in the back straight with Hammond behind him, and then Bonen behind Hammond. Pozzato is a good half a lap down. Opens up the sprint. It's Roger Hammond being hassled by Tom Bonen behind him. Hammond leading Bonen home, is he? Bonen's trying to come around the outside of Hammond. Is Hammond going to get him? He is. Roger Hammond gets Tom Bonen on the line as well. Not a great day in the office for Tom Bonen. Really wanted this one.
What a bump.
Strong men of the day, but nothing like Fabian Cancellara. Leif Hoster coming over to finish his race today. Eisel. And that's the sort of finish that Sean Kelly would have had many years ago. To a second Paris-Roubaix victory. Well, that is an emotional moment. Incredible win for Fabian Cancellara. You don't often see him immensely emotional, but certainly is today. The best part of 50 kilometers by himself. Well, chapeau, fabulous, fabulous win for the man from Switzerland. We'll take a short break.
Yeah. Get mobbed. There's George. A good look, didn't work this morning, did it? Off point.
vice-président, donc en charge de la jeunesse et des sports, du conseil régional. Le vainqueur du jour 2023.
Why this time?
Zoomed in. Got the shot to see.